59 killed and 527 listed as injured from the Las Vegas shooting on October 1st. How do we deal with this kind of tragedy? That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm Mike the Cop.
I got you. Yeah, I will defend my brothers. I will defend the weak. I will pursue and fight evil so others may sleep. I am the sheepdog, protecting the night. Wolf hunters unite. Bring it on. It's time to fight.
If you are a regular subscriber or viewer of my work, you know that I tend to try to talk about places where law enforcement meets culture and throw in a dash of sarcasm or humor where it makes sense. In this case, I'm not going to have too much of that because I don't think it makes too much sense. This is a watershed moment. I believe it's going to be. Like, where were you when JFK was assassinated? Where were you when the Challenger exploded? Where were you on 9/11? I think people are going to remember where they were, what they were doing, what they were thinking and feeling when people look back at October 1st, 2017. As I'm recording this, the news channels are constantly repeating this phrase of police are looking for a motive. And sometimes the motive is something that we don't want to hear. It's just pure evil. There is a great proclivity in humanity for unimaginable evils. We also saw that night the ability that people have to rise up against that evil, and we've seen that time and time again. Where I'm bothered the last couple of days is how fast in our culture we are to politicize something, both on the so-called right and on the so-called left. We're seeing people who are capitalizing on this, using it on their feeds to further their agenda in ways that they think it supports it, an agenda that they had long before this mass tragedy happened. And I think obviously we can look at things objectively and go back and try to understand them and understand what was right, what was wrong, what was good, what was bad. I just think that we should give it a little bit of time to actually mourn with those that are mourning and grieve with those who are grieving, and just sit and take this in and figure out what it is that we need to do to be able to properly deal with this in the big picture. So for those of you who have decided to turn this all into a political debate, you know, make it about Trump versus Obama, gun control and all that other stuff, right now, in the middle of all of this still being investigated, then this is how I think you're being perceived, at least by me, but probably by a lot of people. I want to say thank you to everyone who responded to that tragedy, and not just first responders by profession, but even people who were there at the concert who all of a sudden became just everyday heroes. They sacrificed themselves for others. They dropped everything in their life, everything that mattered to them personally, and put others ahead of themselves, rescuing the injured, transporting the injured, doing what they could do in the moment. And they are to be recognized and hailed as heroes who are willing to do what was necessary in that moment. These events that shape our culture, they are large. They're a phenomenon that sticks with us, but overall, it's not a thing that happens every day. The police officers that responded ran toward danger, just as they promised they would, for complete strangers, for people that they have never been invested in, for people who have never invested in them, simply because that's the character they have. That's why most police officers sign up for the job, is because they really want to contribute to society, and when the crap hits the fan like the other night, they are ready to do whatever is necessary to save others. My heart goes out to the off-duty Las Vegas officer that was killed, that was attending the concert. Another officer was shot in the response. And I heard stories of even off-duty officers at other establishments holding the door, calming people down, and doing what they could do in another city, another place and environment, and just doing what they're trained to do, doing what their heart has brought them to a place to be able to do. So thank you to everyone. Now, specifically as it relates to how do we deal with a tragedy like this, I have to say that for law enforcement officers, obviously seeing that kind of mass carnage and evil in one night is a rarity, right? That's not going to happen for most police officers, most first responders. And that's something that I don't have an experience with. That's something they're going to have a hard time processing, many of them, and they're going to have to deal with that. But law enforcement officers, they're not any more special than anybody else. They just have a unique job. And part of that unique job is day in and day out seeing the worst that humanity has to offer. People don't typically call the cops when things are going dandy. They call at their worst. You know, they see the proclivity for evil in people. They see the shootings. They see the stabbings. They see children taking their last breath. They see people who have found no other way out than to kill themselves, and they come in and have to respond to that and inform families of that. Car accidents, domestic situations, the list goes on of what they see every day, and that changes people. And that's a lot of why I make the content that I do. It's a lot of the reason why I make it in the way that I do. I just want people to understand the human side of cops and what they go through. And seeing that stuff day in and day out will change you. And we have to watch how we deal with that. Not just cops, but everybody. But we do have to watch how we deal with that, because if all we focus on is this small sliver of what we see day in and day out, we can forget that there's more to see. We can forget that we used to see it. And then we narrow in on the negative, and we sometimes feel like we can't escape it. And that is where this video is what I want to talk about, is how do you deal with that? How do you deal with a major tragedy like that? And how do you deal with the little tragedies that build up over time, so that you do it in a healthy way, in a positive way, and not something that's going to be turned negative on yourself, your family, or God forbid, others at work. So how do you deal with it? Humanizing the Badge, the organization that I was privileged to be a part of, starting, we did a survey of over 3,800 officers in which 41% of them indicated that they would or have considered suicide as an option to deal with these kinds of stresses. And that's an unimaginably high number to me. I would have guessed that it was higher than normal across society, but that's scary. And we have to be able to do something about it. And I don't have all of the answers, and I don't want to pretend to. But if you're a cop, please listen up. If you're not a cop, if this advice is good for you in your life, then great. Because even though, again, cops aren't better than you, if you're not a police officer, we're all equal. We just have unique stresses that are associated with our job. And maybe you do too in your life. Maybe you've seen tragedy again and again, and you have that to deal with. How do you deal with it? I'm breaking it down into 3 categories: faith, family, and fun. Simple, right? 3 Fs. Not to be confused with the 5 Ds of dodgeball.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. What?
When it comes to faith, what I'm talking about is believing in something outside of yourself, bigger than yourself. For me, that is God. For me, that is directly in the form of my Christian faith. And that is what is the grid that I see the world through. And everyone has that grid. We're all asking, I think, the same questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What's wrong with this world? And how can we fix it? I think everyone is asking those questions, maybe not in that exact way or those exact phrases, but in some sense there's a nagging in humanity to ask, what's this all about? Are we making any kind of difference at all in our jobs? Am I making any kind of difference at all in society? When I see this happen on the news, time after time again, when I see negative, is any of this for a reason? And I think that for those of us that have faith, we see things a little bit differently when we engage that faith. We also did a survey through Humanizing the Badge of officers, and what we showed is like you had a baseline of average people in the career, and they had like a baseline stress level. If you didn't practice any faith at all, you engaged no concept of faith, you were 41% more likely to answer questions that indicated you had a harder time dealing with stress. Those who answered in a way that indicated they were active in their faith at, I think it was 9 hours or more a month, that they were actively engaged in serving in their faith community, they were 38% less likely to struggle with those same thoughts of suicide, or dealing with the stress of things like seeing children in distress, suicides and murders, and other terrible things and scenes. Now, when I say faith, for me, I'm not talking about like this name it and claim it, go plant a seed.
And I would like them to sow a $52 seed for 52 weeks of favor.
I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about these crazy faith healers who are just out to be charlatans.
Hey, take the kids! That's yours tonight! You want it? You want it?
Not what I'm talking about. Not my jam. I'm more of your standard run-of-the-mill evangelical Christian. And I'm not here to make this whole conversation about my faith and what I believe. You want to know, you want to ask me questions? Awesome. You want to know specifics about how I've seen that have an impact on my life? Happy to answer. It's great. My point is that we're all wrestling with this idea of, is there something bigger than us? Why would I want to help anybody as a police officer? Why would I want to help anybody, period, in life? Is there something more going on that I need to look at and place my faith in? And that's what my encouragement is, to explore that in your life. So that's the first one, is faith. Second one is family. We all have this circle of people in our lives, be it blood relatives or friends that are close to us. I would just lump it all in as this idea of family. And we have to lean in on them. We have to be able to share with them our hearts and ideas and our experiences in the right ways. And they're there. Typically, they want to help. Obviously, there's these terrible situations in which people don't have a lot of blood family supporting them in their careers and stuff like that. But just consider family the whole sphere of those that you know and trust, and who know and trust you, and know you for who you really are, and know your intentions and your character. And we need to be able to spend time with those people, enjoy those people. And sometimes at work, when we don't see the purpose in the job, when we're struggling there, we can always come back to family and say, I have a purpose here. I can pour into my kids. I can pour into my spouse. I can do more for my friends. Now, I can do something for them. Over here, I feel like I'm less out of control. I'm always responding to things. I'm always going to the next call. Here, I can be proactive. Here, I can build relationships and cultivate it, and have a place that is, trusted, that you can be yourself and have people that you really love and care for and who do the same for you. It's critical. When we just withdraw into ourselves and we don't spend time with other people, it's dangerous. Because a lot of cops, their solution is booze, women, gambling, buying new stuff, whatever it is, to satisfy that need we have for actual true friendship and good family relationships. So you gotta seek that out. You gotta have that. None of that other stuff is ever gonna satisfy that need. It's not gonna scratch that itch. You have to have a good family and friend structure in your life. And lastly, I say fun. You could call it fitness. You need hobbies. You need an outlet, because as you deal with these things, as stress kind of onboards into your life, we're like pressure cookers. It can blow up unless that stress is relieved. And so we have to have these outlets. And it doesn't have to be cop related. It could be anything. For me, it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I love the opportunity I have to go hang out and engage with other people who have nothing to do with law enforcement. We share this common enjoyment of the sport and the martial art, and it is a huge stress reliever. I can definitely tell the difference when I'm on the mats, exercising, learning, growing, challenging myself, and my stress levels come down almost immediately when I do that. A lot of people go to the gym, they have hobbies, whatever that may be. Whatever that is for you, you have to have it, and you can't sacrifice it. There's a tendency in us to be lazy. It's easier sometimes to just say like, I'm just gonna watch TV on the couch. And maybe sometimes that's fine to blow off steam too. Watch a movie, watch a TV show that you enjoy, and kind of just like forget about the rest of the world. But we need to do something that actually blows off that steam. Physical activities are preferred, I would suggest. So those are my answers, my ideas of how do you deal with something like this. And I'm not trying to oversimplify it. I'm not trying to make it sound like it's super easy, like it's not a struggle, that we're not going to have issues. And there's so much more we could talk about under each of these categories. But I just wanted to share my mind and heart with you as a result of this tragedy. When we think about how are we supposed to deal with this, one step at a time, and those are the three ways that I have found to be super beneficial for me and maybe be beneficial for you. You can disagree with me, that's okay. If you have questions or follow-up, drop it in the comments. Side note, now that we're sort of like past this, real quick at the end, how many subscribers are we at right now? 99,917. Ooh, buddy, we're almost to 100K. I was thinking that for 100,000, I've never done it, a live Q&A. So as a way to thank you guys, I'll get online and answer questions for a while. We'll set the timer and go for it. But that way we can sort of celebrate that together, because it's really all you guys that are following the content and engaging with it. So I appreciate it so much. We're almost there. Hit the little bell button notification thing. Join the notification squad. I don't know. Yeah, join so that when it goes off, you know that I go live tomorrow to celebrate this 100K, assuming that you don't watch this video and unsubscribe, and then I start going the other direction. Different kind of video for me. Yes, thanks for hanging in there. You guys rock. See you next time. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification button for my channel. If you want to find me off of YouTube, you can always add me on Snapchat, follow me on Instagram or Twitter, like my Facebook page, and if you really like me, you can also check out my store or my Patreon page.